Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favourite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful, with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher, and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. The spring regatta on the Thames was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant, refined, every guest playing their assigned role under glittering Art Deco lights. Then Sir Reginald Harrington, the wealthy patron, was found strangled in his private boathouse, his own silk cravat tight around his neck, a shattered champagne glass beside him on the cold marble floor. The police called it a simple robbery, but Hercule Poirot saw a carefully rehearsed performance. Someone in this floating theatre of wealth and society was playing the role of the innocent, while secretly playing the role of the murderer. The masks are perfect, the lines are well rehearsed. But in Poirot's theatre, every actor eventually forgets their line. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The boathouse at Harrington Hall rose like a private proscenium arch beside the glittering Thames. Spring sunlight sparkled on the water, throwing golden patterns across the Art Deco elegance of white pavilions and mahogany-trimmed launches. Hothouse roses and lilies filled tall crystal vases, their heavy perfume drifting on the breeze and blending with the sharp, rich scent of Cuban cigar smoke from the gentleman's terrace. Polished railings gleamed under velvet awnings, as while distant piano music floated from the main marquee. Soft, elegant notes that masked the first stirrings of unease. Sir Reginald Harrington had hosted this annual spring regatta for over a decade. His guests formed a carefully chosen cast: society figures, business associates, and family. Luxury motor launches ferried them along the river, their engines purring beneath laughter and the clink of champagne glasses. The air carried expensive Chanel perfume from the ladies in flowing silk evening gowns and the warm, leathery aroma of fresh furniture wax inside the hall. Footsteps echoed crisply on parquet floors. Crystal chandeliers tinkled softly with every river breeze. It was a stage set for celebration, not for murder. The discovery came as dusk painted the sky in rose and gold. A young footman, white gloves trembling, had stumbled from the private boathouse. Sir Reginald lay slumped against the mahogany desk, his own silk cravat knotted brutally around his neck. His face bore the wide-eyed surprise of betrayal. Shattered crystal from a champagne flute sparkled on the cold marble floor. The faint, dry scent of champagne still hanging in the chill night air. The body remained warm. The act had happened while the regatta's music and laughter provided perfect auditory cover. Inspector Japp arrived swiftly, his rough tweed coat brushing against the velvet curtains. "Looks like a straightforward robbery, Poirot," he declared. "Some river rat took advantage of the crowds." Hercule Poirot merely tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes gleaming with quiet interest. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and surveyed the scene with calm precision. Order and method would guide him here, as always. The cast of characters gathered quickly in the warm drawing-room. Lady Evelyn Harrington, the widow, wore a sleek black silk gown that rustled like whispered secrets with every movement. She dabbed at her eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief, her shoulders shaking in what seemed perfect grief. Yet the handkerchief stayed strangely dry. Her performance carried the elegance of long rehearsal, Reginald was the soul of this regatta, she said, her voice steady despite the supposed shock. The fire crackled warmly behind her, casting dancing shadows across the velvet drapes. The scent of strong continental coffee mingled with hothouse flowers on the sideboard. Captain Marcus Langley, Sir Reginald's business partner, stood tall in rough tweed, his sandalwood cologne cutting through the room's leather and wood smoke scents. "We reviewed the accounts only hours ago," he stated firmly, gripping a glass of fine wine. His hands remained remarkably steady. His eyes, however, avoided the direction of the boathouse with deliberate care. Miss Lydia Voss, the ambitious young secretary, twisted soft kid gloves in her lap. Her sleek silk gown caught the light as she spoke of late nights working for Sir Reginald. "He was always so kind," she murmured. But her glance toward Lady Evelyn held a flash sharper than simple loyalty. The taste of bitter medicine lingered on her tongue from an earlier headache powder. Dr. Julian Pierce, the family physician, adjusted his spectacles with precise fingers. He carried the faint scent of antiseptic beneath strong coffee. "But the excitement may have strained his heart," he suggested smoothly, though the ligature marks told another tale. His professional detachment felt polished, almost too rehearsed. Mr. Alistair Crowe, the portly financial adviser, paced heavily, his rough tweed jacket straining. He sipped sweet liqueur, the glass clinking against his teeth. "Reginald trusted me with every detail," he insisted, yet sweat gleamed on his forehead despite the cool terrace air drifting through the open French windows. Young Miss Penelope Drake, a distant cousin with theatrical aspirations, fluttered dramatically. Her lighter floral perfume mixed with the others as her silk gown whispered with each gesture. "I simply adored Uncle Reginald," she declared, eyes wide, lips trembling. No tears fell. Hercule Poirot moved among them like a director studying his troupe on opening night. He arranged a silver cigarette case, crystal ashtray, and leather-bound guest list into perfect symmetry on a side table. "Observe, mon ami," he murmured softly. "This suspect plays their role too perfectly. The mask slips. Did you catch it? You watch with Poirot. Non? Notice how Lady Evelyn's handkerchief remains dry, while her shoulders shake so convincingly. Ask yourself, why does she avoid Captain Langley's eyes when speaking of her husband? Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre?" The little grey cells stirred. Poirot noted the contradictions already surfacing. Captain Langley claimed constant presence on the crowded launch, yet a boatman's memory placed him near the boathouse. Miss Voss spoke of devotion, but her hands betrayed nervous calculation. Each actor had taken their mark on this elegant riverside stage. Rain began to patter gently on the tall windows, adding a soft rhythmic counterpoint to the distant piano music and the occasional pop of a champagne cork from lingering guests. The warm drawing-room contrasted sharply with the chill night air outside. Smooth crystal glasses, crisp linen napkins, and soft kid gloves created a tapestry of refined textures against the cold marble of the crime scene. Consider the psychology. What role does each person need to play tonight? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice the small gestures that betray the grand script. Hercule Poirot drew himself up to his full, modest height and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. This performance, it is rehearsed. Truth does not rehearse. The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players' formal interviews began in the sunlit drawing room of Harrington Hall, each one a carefully staged scene under Hercule Poirot's watchful direction. Warm morning light filtered through tall windows, illuminating polished mahogany tables and velvet curtains that still carried the faint scent of last night's wood smoke. The air held the rich aroma of strong continental coffee and fresh hothouse lilies, while the grandfather clock chimed softly, marking the rhythm of rehearsed entrances and exits. Lady Evelyn Harrington entered first, her black silk gown rustling like a tragic heroine's costume. She performed widowhood with graceful poise, dabbing at her eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief. "My husband was the heart of every regatta," she said, voice modulated and steady. Yet the handkerchief remained perfectly dry, and her gaze never lingered long on any face. "Watch this performance carefully," Poirot addressed the unseen audience. "Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it?" He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, green eyes sharp with interest. Captain Marcus Langley followed, his rough tweed jacket contrasting the room's elegance. Sandalwood cologne mixed with the lingering leather scent of the armchairs. "I was on the main launch discussing business until late," he declared confidently, sipping hot coffee whose steam rose in the cool air from the terrace doors. His alibi sounded smooth, yet he avoided mentioning the exact time he left the pavilion. Miss Lydia Voss came next, twisting soft kid gloves nervously in her lap. Her sleek silk evening gown caught the light as she spoke. "Sir Reginald trusted me with all his papers," she insisted, but her eyes darted toward the desk where documents had been slightly disturbed. The faint taste of bitter medicine still lingered on her tongue from the previous evening. Dr. Julian Pierce adjusted his spectacles with precise fingers, the faint antiseptic scent beneath his coffee aroma. "The strain of the regatta could have weakened his heart," he suggested smoothly, though the marks on the neck clearly spoke of strangulation. His professional calm felt polished and almost too flawless for genuine shock. Mr. Alistair Crowe entered heavily, his portly frame straining the rough tweed. He sipped sweet liqueur from a crystal glass, the liquid catching the light. "Reginald confided everything in me," he blustered, pacing with heavy footsteps on the parquet floor. Sweat beaded on his brow despite the gentle chill drifting from the open windows. Young Miss Penelope Drake delivered her lines with dramatic flair, her lighter floral perfume floating through the room. Her silk gown whispered with each animated gesture. "I simply adored dear Uncle Reginald from afar," she wept, eyes wide and lips trembling. No actual tears appeared to blur her carefully applied mascara. Hercule Poirot directed each scene with quiet precision. He arranged a few objects on the side table into perfect symmetry. Silver ashtray, crystal decanter, leather notebook. "You watch with Poirot, no?" he murmured. "You see how this one's hands tremble just so when certain names arise. Ah, but you say Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. The psychology, it is everything. Each suspect revealed their assigned role. The grieving widow, the loyal business partner, the devoted secretary, the detached physician, the trusted advisor, the innocent young cousin. Yet contradictions surfaced like missed cues in a poorly rehearsed play. Lady Evelyn claimed complete ignorance of her husband's recent financial tensions, but Captain Langley had already mentioned heated arguments over regatta funds. Miss Voss spoke warmly of long working nights, yet Dr. Pierce recalled her asking for unexpected time away. Mr. Crow insisted on absolute trust, but his pacing grew more agitated when questioned about missing account ledgers. Outside, rain pattered softly on the tall windows, adding a melancholic percussion to the distant sound of a piano playing from the pavilion. The warm drawing-room contrasted with the chill terrace air that slipped inside. Smooth crystal glasses, crisp linen napkins, soft kid gloves, and the cold touch of marble from the crime scene memories blended into the rich sensory backdrop of this elegant theatre. Consider the psychology. What role does each person need to play to protect themselves? If you are hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how loyalty performs, as resentment and grief performs as relief. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and made a small expressive gesture with his hands. This performance, it is rehearsed. Truth does not rehearse. Every actor had taken their mark, but who played truth and who performed lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. Deeper investigation carried Hercule Poirot along the damp riverside paths and into the private studies of Harrington Hall. The morning air held a crisp chill from the Thames, contrasting the warm drawing-room where fresh coffee steamed in delicate porcelain cups. Footsteps crunched on gravel paths, while distant piano music still drifted from the pavilion, now subdued like fading overture music. Velvet curtains in the study swayed gently, carrying the faint scent of furniture wax and lingering cigar smoke. A mask slipped during a tense exchange with Miss Lydia Voss in Sir Reginald's mahogany-panelled study. She mentioned a confidential letter about Regatta finances that no other suspect had referenced. When pressed, her soft kid gloves twisted violently, and her voice faltered for the first time. It was nothing important, she claimed, but the sudden pallor on her face betrayed her. The first small revelation pointed to hidden financial pressures weighing on Sir Reginald in the weeks before his death. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. He arranged a few papers on the desk into perfect symmetry. Observe, mon ami. This suspect plays their role too perfectly until now. The mask slips. Did you catch it? You watch with Poirot, non? Notice how her hands betray what her composed face tries to hide, and the investigation continued with quiet intensity. Captain Langley's launch alibi developed cracks when a second boatman recalled seeing him slip away toward the boathouse around the critical hour. Lady Evelyn's performance of grief showed further strain when questioned about recent arguments with her husband over money. Mr. Alistair Crowe grew visibly uncomfortable when asked about certain account discrepancies, his heavy footsteps echoing louder on the parquet as he paced. Director method, applied to Miss Voss, the performance. She speaks of loyalty and devotion, dabbing at non-existent tears with delicate precision, her silk gown rustling softly as she shifts in the chair. The tell, yet the handkerchief stays dry, her breathing remains even, and her eyes hold calculation rather than sorrow, and the performance of shock is technically flawless, too flawless. The psychology. I am reminded of the Ackroyd affair, where a trusted figure performed innocent surprise so convincingly that even experienced observers were momentarily deceived. That man had rehearsed his widened eyes and dropped jaw before mirrors for hours. He practiced the exact tremor in his voice and the careful hesitation between words. But he made one fatal error. When reaching for his cigarette case, his hand remained perfectly steady. A man truly shocked does not possess such steady hands. The body, it knows the truth even when the face lies most eloquently. The little grey cells understand this deeply, the psychology beneath every performance. In the same way, Miss Voss's calm when mentioning the hidden letter reveals prior knowledge she should not possess. A sheer expanded insight. Genuine emotion disrupts motor control. Rehearsed lies maintain it. The truth, therefore, this young woman knew more about the financial secrets than she admits. Her innocence is costume, not feeling. You see it now, non? The theatre begins to crumble around her. Rain continued to fall softly on the tall windows, creating a gentle percussion that mixed with the crackling fire and the occasional distant champagne cork pop from staff clearing the previous night's celebrations. The warm interior fought against the chill terrace air seeping inside. Textures blended richly: smooth crystal paperweights, crisp linen table covers, rough tweed on the men's jackets, and the cold touch of marble recalled from the boathouse floor. Scents of expensive perfume, sandalwood cologne, Eschen's sweet liqueur lingered as suspects were called in one by one. Reflection on human masks, approximately 280 words. In this elegant riverside theatre, we see how humans wear masks not merely to deceive others, but to survive their own truths. Lady Evelyn performs grief, while relief flickers beneath. Captain Langley plays loyal friend while resentment simmers. Why do we construct these performances? Fear of judgment, greed for advantage, love twisted into possession, or pride that refuses vulnerability? Society itself writes the scripts, demanding the perfect widow, the steadfast partner, the grateful secretary. Genuine emotion stumbles and falters. Rehearsed performances flow with dangerous smoothness. The body, however, resists the lie. A dry handkerchief during sobs, steady hands during claimed shock, with averted eyes during declarations of loyalty. These are the cracks where truth leaks through. I recall another case years ago on the Orient Express, where passengers wore elaborate masks of innocence, while one among them hid a lifetime of calculated revenge. Each performed their role with skill, yet small tells. A tremor when a name was mentioned, an overly perfect alibi, betrayed them. The universal truth about deception is simple. Every actor eventually forgets their lines when the spotlight grows too bright and sustained. No performance can withstand endless scrutiny, because the human soul yearns for authenticity even as it fears it. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener. Observe not the grand gestures or loud declarations, but the quiet moments when the actor believes no one watches. There, the mask grows thin. There, the true face begins to show. In this spring regatta drama, some masks have already cracked. More will surely follow as we move deeper into the acts. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and drew himself up to his modest height. Bravo! But the performance, it was not convincing. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. Hercule Poirot began to tighten the spotlight on each suspect with quiet, relentless pressure. The afternoon light in the drawing-room had softened, yet the air remained thick with the scent of strong continental coffee and fading hothouse lilies. Crystal chandeliers tinkled faintly as a breeze stirred the velvet curtains, while the grandfather clock chimed the passing hours like a metronome for faltering performances. He called Captain Marcus Langley first, and the man entered with forced confidence, his sandalwood cologne clashing with the warm leather and wood smoke scents in the room. "My alibi on the launch is solid," Langley insisted, his rough tweed jacket slightly rumpled. Yet when Poirot gently questioned the exact timing of his return, the captain's steady hands began to fidget with a crystal glass of fine wine. The script started to show its seams. "Too perfect, too rehearsed," Poirot observed softly. "Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth until pressure is applied. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? You watch with Poirot, non. See how his eyes shift when the boathouse is mentioned." Next came Mr. Alistair Crowe. The portly adviser paced heavily across the parquet floor, his footsteps echoing louder than before. His sweet liqueur scented his breath as he blustered about complete honesty in financial matters. "Reginald trusted me implicitly," he declared. But sweat glistened on his forehead despite the cool terrace air drifting through the French windows. His indignation felt increasingly overplayed, the shoulders too rigid for genuine outrage. Miss Lydia Voss was questioned again about the mysterious letter. Her silk gown rustled nervously as she twisted her kid gloves. She repeated her earlier lines with less conviction. The bitter taste of medicine seemingly returned to her tongue. When Poirot pointed out the contradiction with Dr. Pierce's recollection of her sudden request for time off, her voice cracked like a missed cue. Lady Evelyn Harrington maintained her widow's role with strained elegance. She dabbed at dry eyes with the linen handkerchief, while claiming ignorance of any business troubles. The fire crackled warmly in the background, casting flickering shadows across her black silk gown. Yet her composure wavered when Poirot asked about private conversations with her husband on the night of the regatta. Dr. Julian Pierce offered medical explanations with diminishing smoothness. His spectacles reflected the light as he spoke of possible heart strain, but the cold marble reality of the boathouse contradicted his narrative. The distant sound of rain on windows mixed with the soft closing of doors as servants moved discreetly outside. Young Miss Penelope Drake fluttered in with less dramatic flair than before. Her floral perfume seemed lighter, almost defensive. "I knew nothing of any quarrels," she insisted, but her wide eyes betrayed uncertainty when pressed on her movements near the boathouse. Poirot arranged objects on the side table with precise symmetry. Cigarette case, ashtray, notebook. He made an expressive gesture with his small hands. Rehearsed lines, they begin to falter under scrutiny. Alibis are scripts, and scripts can be tested. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play when the audience grows more attentive? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence now that the spotlight intensifies? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. The rich textures of the room pressed in. Smooth crystal, crisp linen, soft velvet, rough tweed, and the remembered cold marble of the crime scene. Scents blended, expensive perfume, cigar remnants, fresh flowers, and the chill night air that had earlier carried wood smoke. Temperatures shifted between the warm drawing-room fire and the cooler terrace breeze. Tastes lingered, rich coffee, dry champagne recalled from the evening, and sweet liqueur on nervous tongues. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, his green eyes gleaming. "Ah, but you say, Poirot sees theatre everywhere. Bear with me, mon ami. The psychology, it reveals what words try to conceal." Each suspect's performance grew strained. False notes appeared in once smooth deliveries. Helpfulness began to mask guilt. Calm began to hide terror. Loyalty performed as resentment, while grief continued its costume of relief. The river continued its indifferent flow outside, rain pattering steadily now. Distant piano music had fallen silent, leaving only the soft rustle of silk, the chime of the clock and the occasional pop of a champagne cork from the kitchens. The stage lights, though invisible, felt brighter on the actors. "We approach the final act," Poirot murmured. "Have you identified the true performer yet? The careful observer will notice how the grand declarations grow quieter while small tells grow louder." Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. Hercule Poirot chose the private boathouse itself for the major confrontation, turning the scene of the crime into the brightest spotlight. Late afternoon light filtered through the high windows, casting long shadows across the cold marble floor where the shattered champagne glass had lain, and the air still carried a faint trace of dry champagne, mixed with the chill river breeze and lingering wood smoke from distant bonfires. Velvet curtains inside the boathouse office swayed gently, their heavy fabric brushing against polished mahogany panels. He gathered Lady Evelyn Harrington, Captain Marcus Langley, and Mr. Alistair Crowe, together in the confined space. The others waited in the main hall under discreet watch. Silk rustled as Lady Evelyn entered, her black gown whispering against the floor. Captain Langley's sandalwood cologne clashed with the room's cooler atmosphere. Crowe's rough tweed carried the scent of nervous sweat despite the crisp air. Poirot stood at the centre like a director commanding the stage. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, and then arranged a small silver ashtray and crystal paperweight into perfect symmetry on the desk. "Mesdames et messieurs, the time has come for honesty. The performances have grown tired." The confrontation escalated quickly. Poirot turned first to Lady Evelyn. He described her dry handkerchief during claimed grief, her steady voice when speaking of sudden widowhood, and the way her eyes avoided certain names. Her composed mask began to fracture. Shoulders that had shaken so elegantly now trembled for real. "You knew," Poirot said quietly. "You knew before the footman raised the alarm." Lady Evelyn's face crumpled. The elegant widow's performance shattered completely. Raw relief mixed with terror flooded her features. She clutched the edge of the mahogany desk, her silk gloves creasing. "I suspected. I feared it was coming," she whispered, a voice breaking into genuine sobs this time. Tears finally appeared, running mascara in dark streaks. The emotional breakdown revealed years of resentment beneath the performed devotion. "He controlled everything, the money, the regatta, me, but I did not kill him." "Watch this moment carefully," Poirot addressed the listener. "The mask slips. Did you catch it? This is no longer rehearsal. Real feeling emerges at last. You see how the body can no longer sustain the lie when pressure becomes too great?" Captain Langley shifted uncomfortably, his steady hands now gripping the back of a chair. Crowe's heavy breathing filled the small space, his portly frame seeming to shrink under the spotlight. Poirot pressed further, revealing how financial records showed Crowe's hidden access to regatta funds and Langley's knowledge of the disputes, and the doctor's earlier medical suggestions were exposed as convenient misdirection. Miss Voss's letter was brought into the open as evidence of shared secrets. Each revelation chipped away at the remaining performances. Then the crucial psychological insight surfaced. Poirot turned his green eyes directly on the group. Greed performed as loyalty. Fear performed as confidence. Hate performed as concern. But the body always betrays the actor. Steady hands in claimed shock. Dry eyes in claimed grief. Averted gazes in claimed innocence. These are not accidents. They are the truth refusing to stay backstage. Director method, applied to Lady Evelyn. The performance, She weeps with appropriate shoulder shakes, dabs at eyes with linen, speaks of loss in modulated tones suitable for a grieving widow. Would the tell, but observe, the handkerchief stayed dry for so long, the mascara did not run until this moment, and her hands remained steady when first informed. The performance of grief was technically perfect, too perfect. The psychology. I am reminded of the Styles case, where a wife performed devoted mourning while relief burned beneath. She had rehearsed her sorrowful expressions before the mirror, practiced the exact pitch of her voice when speaking of her husband. Yet, when offered tea immediately after the news, she accepted it with fingers that did not tremble. A truly shocked widow does not reach for refreshment so calmly. The little grey cells understand. The psychology beneath the performance reveals what words try to hide. In the same way here, Lady Evelyn's prior knowledge and controlled demeanour betrayed her long-held resentment long before the tears finally came. The truth. Therefore, this woman knew of the death, or at least expected it, before the official discovery. Her grief was costume, not genuine feeling. You see it now, no? The theatre crumbles when real emotion breaks through. The room grew heavier with silence, broken only by Lady Evelyn's genuine sobs, the soft rustle of silk, and the distant patter of rain on the boathouse roof. Temperatures shifted between the chill river air seeping in and the warmer remnants of afternoon sun. Scents of expensive perfume, sandalwood, and faint champagne mingled with the cold marble underfoot. Textures pressed in, smooth crystal fragments still on the floor, rough tweed on the men, soft kid gloves now damp with real tears. The Miss Penelope Drake and Dr. Pierce were brought in briefly to witness the shift. Their own performances looked suddenly amateur beside the raw breakdown. The tension in the boathouse rose like a crescendo. Someone's mask had fallen completely. Poirot drew himself up to his full modest height and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. His green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. Chapter 6. Behind the Curtain. The investigation moved backstage, away from public performances, into the hidden corners of Harrington Hall and the private lives of the cast. Evening had settled over the Thames, bringing a deeper chill to the terrace, while the drawing-room fire crackled warmly against the cold night air, and the scent of strong continental coffee mingled with expensive perfume and the faint sweetness of liqueur, as Poirot gathered fragments of truth from quiet conversation and examined personal papers in the mahogany study. Footsteps on parquet floors sounded softer now, almost conspiratorial, while distant rain tapped insistently on the windows like impatient audience members. Past secrets began to surface like props pulled from storage. Sir Reginald had been embroiling the Regatta funds in risky ventures, unknown to most. Captain Marcus Langley and Miss Lydia Voss shared a secret romantic entanglement, their loyalty to the victim masking growing resentment toward his controlling ways. Mr. Alistair Crowe had been siphoning small but steady amounts from the accounts, in his helpful advisor role, hiding a desperate need for money to cover personal debts. Dr. Julian Pierce had prescribed sedatives to Sir Reginald under pressure, while turning a blind eye to the growing tensions in the marriage. Lady Evelyn's earlier breakdown opened further doors. She confessed to a long-standing affair with Captain Langley, performed as mere friendship in public. "We planned to leave after the regatta," she admitted, voice still raw from real tears. Her silk gown seemed less elegant now, rumpled from the emotional strain. The performance of the perfect society wife had hidden deep unhappiness and fear of losing everything in a divorce. Hidden connections emerged between the players. Miss Voss had typed the incriminating letters and knew of Crow's embezzlement, using that knowledge to secure promises of future advancement. A young Miss Penelope Drake, the aspiring actress, had overheard arguments and tried to leverage them for a small inheritance, her innocent cousin role masking opportunistic ambition. Even the doctor had financial ties to Crow through old gambling debts. Poirot moved among these revelations with the calm of a director reviewing notes after dress rehearsal. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and arranged a stack of letters symmetrically on the desk. Behind the curtain, the real drama unfolds. Every actor has a secret. Poirot, he sees behind the masks. Reflection on hidden motives, approximately 290 words. In this Thameside theatre, we witness how hidden motives drive every performance. Greed dresses itself as concern for the regatta's success. Love twists into obsession and performs as casual friendship. Resentment wears the mask of loyalty, while hate performs as helpful cooperation. Why do humans bury their true desires so deeply? Because society's stage demands polished roles: the devoted wife, the trustworthy partner, the grateful employee. Revealing raw motives risks rejection, poverty, or scandal. Yet these concealed forces always leak through in small tells. A lingering glance, a too quick denial, or a steady hand where trembling should occur. The psychology is clear. Motives left in the dark gain power precisely because they are denied the light of honest examination. When fear of exposure grows stronger than the desire for truth, the actor commits fully to the role, rehearsing lines until they feel natural. But the body and the little grey cells refuse to forget. They signal through dry eyes during sobs, through overly smooth alibis, through the way a person avoids the eyes of their supposed closest ally. I recall the case of the missing will in a grand country house much like this one. There, family members performed perfect mourning and sibling affection while each secretly plotted to secure the fortune. One sister rehearsed her tearful speeches so thoroughly that even servants believed her grief. Yet, she made the error of smiling faintly when she thought no one watched her in the hallway mirror. Another brother played the loyal executor with such convincing steadiness that his hands never shook when signing documents. A truly grieving man does not sign away his brother's legacy with such calm precision. The body knows. In that case, as here, hidden motives of greed and long-buried sibling rivalry eventually tore through the performances when the spotlight of sustained questioning grew too intense. The universal truth about deception is this: motives hidden backstage always demand more energy to maintain than truth requires to simply exist. Eventually, the curtain frays, the lights expose the wires, and the actor grows exhausted. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener: look behind the grand speeches and elegant gestures. There, in the quiet contradictions and the moments when the actor believes the audience has looked away, the real motives step forward. In our spring regatta drama, the backstage has now been lit. Every secret has its price. Every motive points toward the final act. The river flowed steadily outside, indifferent to human secrets. Inside, and the warm fire fought the chill night air, seeping through cracks. Textures surrounded them: smooth crystal decanters, crisp linen papers, soft velvet chair arms, rough tweed jackets, and the cold marble recalled from the boathouse. Sounds blended: fire crackling, rain on windows, silk rustling as Lady Evelyn shifted, and the soft closing of a study door. Tastes of rich coffee and sweet liqueur lingered on tongues grown dry with tension. Poirot's green eyes gleamed as he tilted his egg-shaped head. Behind every curtain, a secret. Behind every secret, a motive. The cast was nearly ready for the final assembly. The theatre had grown smaller, more intimate, and far more dangerous for those still clinging to their roles. Chapter 7. The final act. The cast assembled in the grand drawing room of Harrington Hall as evening deepened. Crystal chandeliers tinkled softly overhead, casting warm golden light across polished mahogany and velvet curtains. The fire crackled in the hearth, pushing back the chill night air that slipped through the tall windows, while the faint scent of hothouse lilies mixed with lingering cigar smoke and expensive perfume. Footsteps on the parquet floor announced each arrival. The river outside flowed silently, its surface reflecting distant lights like a dark mirror to the drama unfolding inside. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, like the director commanding his final scene. He drew himself up to his modest height, adjusted an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve with precision, and arranged 3 crystal glasses into perfect symmetry on a side table. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he surveyed the troupe. Lady Evelyn sat pale, but composed in black silk. Captain Langley stood stiffly in rough tweed. Miss Voss twisted her kid gloves. Dr. Pierce adjusted his spectacles. Mr. Alistair Crowe sweated visibly. Young Miss Penelope Drake fluttered nervously, her floral perfume sharp in the warm room. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice carrying the authority of a master director. You have each performed for Poirot. Some truthfully, some not. Let us review the performances, shall we? He turned first to Lady Evelyn. You played the grieving widow with such elegance. The shoulders shook, the handkerchief dabbed at the eyes, but the grief, it was costume. Your handkerchief remained dry far too long. Your knowledge of the death came before the footman's cry. Resentment performed as devotion, yet real tears only fell when the mask could no longer hold. Lady Evelyn lowered her gaze, the silk of her gown rustling softly. Poirot continued, Captain Langley, you performed the loyal business partner, the steady voice, the confident alibi on the launch. But loyalty does not fabricate witnesses or slip away toward the boathouse at the fatal hour. Your affair with Lady Evelyn and shared resentment toward Sir Reginald's control betrayed the role. Langley's hands clenched at his sides. Miss Voss, your role was the devoted secretary, helpful and ambitious. Yet devoted secretaries do not hide letters about financial irregularities or exchange secret glances with the captain. Your performance of innocence masked calculation and fear. Miss Voss paled, her gloves twisting tighter. Dr. Pierce, you played the detached physician, he offering convenient explanations of heart strain. Innocent bystanders do not prescribe sedatives under pressure or ignore signs of escalating danger. Your calm masked old debts and divided loyalties. The doctor's spectacles reflected the firelight as he shifted uncomfortably. Young Miss Penelope, you performed the innocent young cousin with wide eyes and dramatic flair. Yet innocent bystanders do not eavesdrop on private arguments, hoping for personal gain. Your theatrical ambition hid opportunistic greed. Penelope's lips trembled, this time with genuine unease. Poirot paused, letting the silence stretch like a held breath. The fire crackled. Rain pattered gently on the windows. A distant door closed softly. He made an expressive gesture with his small hands. And so we come to our leading performer, Mr. Alistair Crowe. The portly adviser froze, his rough tweed jacket damp with sweat. The sweet liqueur on his breath seemed suddenly sour in the warm room. You gave the most convincing performance of all. The shocked advisor, the helpful cooperator, the loyal friend offering accounts and sympathy. Magnifique! You paced appropriately, blustered with just the right indignation, and claimed complete trust. But you made one error. One small moment when the mask slipped. Crow's heavy breathing filled the space. "This is outrageous! Poirot raised a hand. "When I mentioned the shattered champagne glass in the boathouse, your hands remained perfectly steady. A man truly horrified by his patron's murder does not reach for his glass with such calm precision. You rehearsed your outrage, practiced the widened eyes and dropped jaw, but the body knows the truth. You strangled Sir Reginald with his own cravat during a private argument over the embezzled funds. He had discovered your thefts and threatened exposure. Greed, not robbery, was the motive. You played helpfulness to deflect suspicion while the Regatta crowds provided cover." Crow's face drained of colour. His performance collapsed. The mask fell completely, revealing raw panic and defeat. "He was going to ruin me," he muttered, voice breaking. "The performance is over," Poirot declared, his voice ringing with finality. "The curtain falls. The truth. She takes her bow." The room fell into stunned silence. Silk rustled as Lady Evelyn turned away. Rough tweed shifted as Langley stepped back. Crystal glasses trembled slightly in nervous hands. The warm fire continued its crackle against the chill night air, while rain on the windows sounded like fading applause. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. Every actor in this drama had a secret, but the spotlight of truth reveals all. No more roles, no more masks. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The grand drawing room of Harrington Hall felt suddenly smaller after Poirot's revelation. The crystal chandeliers still tinkled softly with the night breeze, but the sound now carried a hollow echo. Warm firelight danced across velvet curtains and polished mahogany, yet the air held a new chill that had nothing to do with the terrace doors. The scent of strong continental coffee had grown bitter, mingling with fading hothouse lilies and the sharp residue of cigar smoke. Footsteps on the parquet sounded heavier, more uncertain, and as the cast stood stripped of their carefully rehearsed roles. Inspector Japp arrived promptly, his rough tweed coat brushing against the elegant furnishings. "Well, Poirot, you've done it again," he said gruffly, though his eyes showed reluctant admiration. Alistair Crowe was led away in handcuffs, his portly frame no longer blustering, but slumped in defeat. The once helpful advisor's mask had shattered completely. Greed lay naked beneath the performance of loyalty. No more smooth alibis or indignant pacing, only the quiet click of restraints and the soft closing of the study door behind him. Lady Evelyn Harrington sat motionless in her black silk gown, the fabric now rumpled and lifeless. Real tears had dried on her cheeks, leaving a faint mascara trails. The grieving widow role had been torn away, it revealing a woman exhausted by years of performed devotion and secret resentment. "I never wished him dead," she whispered, voice raw and unpolished, "but I am relieved." Her hands, no longer steady for performance, trembled openly in her lap. The transformation from elegant actress to vulnerable woman was stark and final. Captain Marcus Langley stood beside her, his sandalwood cologne suddenly too strong in the warm room. The loyal partner mask had slipped away, exposing the man who had loved another man's wife while resenting the control that bound them all. "We were fools," he admitted quietly, rough tweed jacket seeming oversized on his suddenly smaller frame. No more confident alibis or steady hands. only quiet shame as he avoided the eyes of the others. Miss Lydia Voss clutched her soft kid gloves tightly, her sleek silk gown creased from nervous twisting. The ambitious secretary role dissolved, leaving a young woman whose calculation had nearly cost her freedom. "I only wanted security," she said, voice small. The hidden letter and secret glances no longer served as clever props. They stood as evidence of misplaced ambition. Her floral perfume seemed lighter now, almost apologetic. Dr. Julian Pierce removed his spectacles and polished them slowly, the antiseptic scent beneath his coffee aroma fading into the background. The detached physician performance had crumbled, revealing a man compromised by old debts and convenient blindness. "I should have spoken sooner," he murmured. His precise fingers, once so steady and professional calm, now fumbled slightly with the cloth. Young Miss Penelope Drake sat quietly, her dramatic flair gone, and the aspiring actress's wide-eyed innocence had been replaced by genuine discomfort. "I only wanted a chance," she said softly, silk gown rustling as she shifted. No more fluttering gestures or rehearsed tears, only the quiet realization that her opportunistic eavesdropping had nearly cast her as suspect. Poirot moved among them like a director after the final curtain. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and made a small expressive gesture with his small hands. "No applause for this performance, only justice. You watch with Poirot, non? See how each actor stands now without their costume. The grand roles have fallen away, leaving only human beings beneath." The police began their formal work with quiet efficiency. Statements were taken, documents collected, the boathouse sealed once more. Outside, the rain continued its soft patter on the windows, mixing with the distant sound of the Thames flowing steadily onward. Inside, the warm drawing-room fire crackled against the chill night air, but the atmosphere had shifted from theatrical tension to sober aftermath. Consider the psychology. When the mask is forcibly removed, what remains? Relief for some, shame for others, exhaustion for all. Greed that performed as helpfulness now faces consequence. Love that performed as indifference must confront its true cost. Fear that performed as confidence must learn honesty. The theatre of crime always ends this way, not with bows and flowers, but with the quiet weight of truth. Lady Evelyn rose slowly, her silk gown whispering one final time. She looked toward the river, where the regatta lights had long been extinguished. "Oh, the spring regatta will never be the same," she said. Captain Langley offered his arm, not as secret lover, but as a man beginning to face reality without rehearsal. Miss Voss and Dr. Pierce exchanged glances free of calculation. Penelope Drake sat straighter, her youthful ambition tempered by the evening's lesson. Poirot arranged a few objects on the side table into perfect symmetry, a final act of order and method. The rich textures of the room, smooth crystal, crisp linen, soft velvet, rough tweed, now felt less like stage dressing and more like ordinary surroundings. Scents of perfume and coffee lingered, but without the earlier edge of performance. "The curtain call has come," Poirot said quietly to the room and to the listener. "Each player has been seen as they truly are. Justice begins its slow but certain work. No more roles, and no more lies, no applause for this performance, only justice." Chapter 9. After the show-dawn light filtered softly through the tall windows of Harrington Hall, washing the drawing-room in pale gold. The crystal chandeliers hung still and silent now, their earlier tinkling replaced by the gentle rustle of silk as servants drew back the velvet curtains. The fire had burned low, leaving only faint wood smoke scent mingling with fresh coffee and the crisp morning air drifting from the terrace. The Thames flowed calmly outside, its surface smooth and reflective, as if the river itself had decided the drama was over. Resolution settled over the estate like a final curtain descending. Alistair Crowe had been formally charged and taken to London. His greedy performance of the loyal adviser had ended in a bare cell, as where no rehearsed lines could save him. The embezzled funds would be traced and restored where possible. The spring regatta, once the glittering centrepiece of the season, would be quietly cancelled for the coming year. Justice, though slow and methodical, had begun its work. Lady Evelyn Harrington stood on the terrace in a simple day dress, no longer the elegant widow in black silk. The performance of grief had been replaced by quiet determination. She breathed the chill morning air deeply, her shoulders relaxed for the first time in years. "I will sell the hall," she told Poirot later. "Too many memories dressed as happiness." Her transformation was complete, from trapped actress in a loveless role to a woman ready to write her own next act. Captain Langley had already left discreetly, she promising to return only when both were free of past shadows. Miss Lydia Voss packed her few belongings with steady hands. The ambitious secretary mask had fallen away, leaving a young woman wiser about the cost of calculation. "I thought loyalty would bring security," she admitted to Poirot. "Instead, it nearly brought prison." She accepted a modest reference and planned to start anew in London, her silk gowns folded away like discarded costumes, and the hidden letter and secret romance no longer defined her. Honest work would. Dr. Julian Pierce returned to his practice with a heavier step but clearer conscience. The detached physician role had been stripped bare, revealing a man who had compromised too easily. "I will testify fully," he promised. His spectacles no longer reflected convenient excuses, but faced uncomfortable truths, and the old gambling debts would be paid honestly this time, and his prescriptions would carry stricter ethics. Young Miss Penelope Drake left with her suitcase and a subdued expression. The aspiring actress had learned that real life offered harsher reviews than any stage. "I wanted spotlight," she said softly, "but not this kind." Her dramatic flair had matured into quiet reflection. She would return to her small theatrical troupe with new appreciation for genuine emotion over rehearsed tears. Poirot walked the riverside path one final time, his small hands clasped behind his back. The cold terrace air contrasted with the warm memories of the investigation. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and observed the transformations around him. The murderer had moved from convincing performer to broken man facing trial. An innocent suspect, Lady Evelyn, had been wrongly cast as villain in her own mind, suffering under the role until truth freed her. The grand estate itself shifted from glittering crime scene and theatre of revelation back to a peaceful riverside home, though changed forever. You watch with Poirot, no? See how each player leaves the stage altered. Greed that performed so smoothly now faces consequence. Fear that wore confidence has learned humility. Love that hid as indifference must now speak honestly. The psychology reveals that no mask survives the final act intact. Ask yourself, what role have you played that truth might one day strip away? The textures of the morning felt different. Crisp linen tablecloths laid for a simple breakfast. Smooth crystal now used for water instead of champagne. Soft kid gloves set aside. Our scents had softened. Fresh flowers replaced by the clean smell of rain-washed air. Strong coffee without the edge of tension. Sounds were gentler. distant birds instead of piano music, the soft closing of carriage doors instead of dramatic entrances, the grandfather clock chiming a new hour, rather than marking suspense. Consider the psychology once more. When the theatre empties, what remains? Not the grand performances, but the quiet lessons. Society forces roles upon us. Perfect wife, loyal friend, ambitious helper. Yet truth demands we remove them eventually. Those who cling too long to the mask suffer most when it is torn away. Those who accept the revelation find freedom, however painful the transition. Lady Evelyn joined Poirot on the path. "Thank you," she said simply, no rehearsed elegance in her voice. "Ye for seeing behind the costumes." Miss Voss waved from the departing motor car, her face no longer calculating, but hopeful. Dr. Pierce offered a genuine nod of respect as he left. Penelope Drake managed a small, authentic smile, her first without theatrical flourish. The estate grew quieter. Servants moved with natural efficiency rather than nervous performance. The boathouse stood sealed, its cold marble floor no longer a stage, but merely a place where truth had been revealed. The Thames continued its steady flow, indifferent yet somehow approving of the restored order. Poirot arranged a few fallen rose petals symmetrically on a stone bench, a final small gesture of method. "The theatre has emptied," he murmured, "but the lessons, they remain. Order and method triumph over performance every time." The theatre emptied, but the lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot sat comfortably in his London apartment, the late morning light filtering through lace curtains onto the polished mahogany table. A steaming cup of tisane released its delicate herbal scent, mingling with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee, prepared by his housekeeper. The room held the familiar warmth of home, soft velvet cushions, crisp linen napkins, and the faint wood smoke from a small fire that fought the lingering chill of spring air. Outside, distant traffic sounded like a fading orchestra, while inside, the grandfather clock chimed gently, marking time for reflection rather than suspense. News of the character's fates had reached him that morning. Lady Evelyn had begun proceedings to sell Harrington Hall, and planned a quieter life abroad, she free from the role of perfect society wife. Captain Langley had resigned his business interest and sought honest work, his secret love no longer hidden in shadows. Miss Lydia Voss had secured a respectable position in a smaller firm, her ambition now tempered by hard-won honesty. Dr. Julian Pierce continued his practice with stricter principles, old debts being repaid openly. Young Miss Penelope Drake had returned to her theatre troupe, performing with newfound authenticity rather than exaggeration. Alistair Crowe awaited trial, his greedy performance finally ended in silence and consequence. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and arranged a few objects on the table into perfect symmetry. The tisane cup, a silver spoon, a leather notebook. He drew himself up slightly in his chair, his green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction as he reviewed the entire drama. In this spring regatta mystery, we saw why people choose to perform rather than reveal truth. Society writes the scripts we feel compelled to follow. The devoted spouse, the loyal partner, the ambitious helper, the innocent bystander. These roles offer safety, approval, and sometimes power. Yet they demand constant energy. Greed dresses as concern for the greater good. Resentment performs as steadfast friendship. Fear wears the costume of calm confidence. Love twists into obsession and pretends to be indifference. Pride refuses vulnerability and masks itself as strength. The actor believes the performance will protect them, but the little grey cells know better. The body resists the lie. Steady hands during claimed shock, dry eyes during professed grief, averted gazes during declarations of loyalty. These are the inevitable cracks. Guilt always betrays the actor through small, unconscious tells that no amount of rehearsal can fully erase. The masks society demands are many. We wear them to fit into elegant drawing rooms, glittering regattas, and polite conversations. A widow must appear devastated. A business partner must seem trustworthy. A young secretary must project gratitude. But beneath these forced roles lie raw human motives, the desire for freedom, money, love, or escape. When the mask is worn too long, it fuses with the face until the actor forgets where the performance ends and the true self begins. Yet truth has patience. It waits for the moment when scrutiny becomes too intense, when the spotlight refuses to dim. Then the actor grows weary. Lines falter, the curtain frays, revelation becomes inevitable. How guilt betrays the actor is a fascinating study in psychology. In the boathouse, Crow's steady hands when first viewing the scene were the fatal tell. A truly horrified man does not reach for reassurance so calmly. Lady Evelyn's prolonged dry handkerchief revealed prior knowledge her grief should not have allowed. Langley's overly perfect launch alibi cracked because the body cannot sustain constant deception under pressure. These physical betrayals are not mere clues. They are the soul's rebellion against the lie the mind has constructed. The psychology of performance teaches us that genuine emotion disrupts motor control and breathing patterns, while rehearsed lies strive for unnatural perfection. The difference is subtle, but unmistakable to the careful observer. I am reminded of the case aboard the Karnak on the Nile many years ago. There, passengers performed various roles with great skill. The grieving niece, the devoted husband, the innocent tourist. One woman in particular rehearsed her sorrow so thoroughly that her tears appeared on cue. Yet when alone for a moment, her reflection in a polished brass fitting showed a faint smile of satisfaction. Another man played the shocked friend with such steady hands and smooth alibis that even experienced detectives were nearly deceived. But a truly shocked individual does not fold a handkerchief with such precision immediately after learning of murder. In that floating theatre on the Nile, as here on the Thames, hidden motives of jealousy, greed, and long-simmering hate eventually tore through the performances. The body knew, the little grey cells understood. Truth triumphed because no performance can withstand endless patient observation. The psychology of revelation is equally profound. When the mask finally falls, as it did for Lady Evelyn in the boathouse, and for Crow in the final assembly, real emotion floods in, relief mixed with terror, shame mixed with release. This moment of authenticity, though painful, brings freedom. The actor who accepts the truth can begin anew without the exhausting weight of constant rehearsal. Those who resist cling desperately to fragments of their role, only to suffer more when justice arrives. In every theatre of crime, revelation serves as both judgment and mercy. It punishes the guilty performer while liberating those wrongly cast in supporting roles of suspicion or guilt by association. Why does truth ultimately triumph over performance? Because performance requires constant vigilance and energy. It is an artificial construction that fights against human nature. Truth simply exists, unadorned, sometimes uncomfortable, but sustainable. The body and mind grow tired of maintaining the lie. Small inconsistencies accumulate until the entire script collapses. Order and method, combined with understanding of human psychology, accelerate this process. The careful observer notices not the loud declarations, but the quiet moments when the actor believes no one is watching. There the mask grows thin. There the true face appears. In this case, the riverside stage with its Art Deco elegance, its champagne toasts and silk gowns, its polished mahogany and velvet drapes, became the perfect backdrop to expose these truths. Oh, the murderer's greed performed as helpfulness, until it could no longer sustain the role. The widow's resentment performed as grief, until real tears broke through. Each player left the stage transformed, some humbled, some freed, some facing consequence. The estate itself returned to peaceful quiet, no longer a glittering theatre of deception. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener. We all perform roles in the great drama of life. Some are forced upon us by society. Others we choose for protection or advantage. Yet the wise person learns to remove the mask before the final act is forced upon them. Observe your own performances and those around you. Notice the small tells, the tremor that should not be there, the steadiness that feels unnatural, the eyes that avoid contact. The theatre of crime, and indeed the theatre of everyday existence, has one enduring truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines when the spotlight of honest scrutiny grows too bright and too sustained. Poirot sipped his tisane, the warm liquid a comfort after the intensity of the case. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and gazed toward the window where spring light promised renewal. The human drama continues in countless forms, on grand estates, in quiet apartments, along rivers and in cities. But Hercule Poirot will always be watching, directing the search for truth behind the masks. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis, Poirot watches always.